There's an interesting concept that I teach to my students, I teach it to my children, because I believe it's a very fundamental concept, both in martial arts and in life in general. And I call this the principle of layers. The layers concept. If you look at the way the world is built, nature, you're going to notice that almost everything is built and designed in the form of layers. Right? If you take any example, take a fruit, an apple, right? So you have the outer layer, the peel, and then you have the actual fruit, the apple, and then you have the deeper layers where the seeds are, right? If you look at the atmosphere, there's layers there. If you look at the earth, there's layers of the earth. The human body is made up of layers. Trees have layers. Everything is built in layers. And there's a very deep lesson there that we could apply to the way we look at life and also the way we look at martial arts. When you look at these layers, you're going to notice that the outermost layer, the layer that the eyes see, usually this superficial layer is the most appealing to the eye. That's where the good looks are. That's where it's flashy, it's attractive, right? What part of the fruit is the most catching to the eye? What part of the fruit catches your eye? It's the outer layer. That's where the color is. Then there's the deeper layer. And the deeper you go, that's where you're going to get to the essence of whatever it is you're looking at. Because what part of the apple, in our example, will dictate what size the apple will be, what color the apple will be? It's in the seeds, and that's the deepest layer. But that deepest layer is the layer that the eye doesn't see. You need to peel away and cut through the superficial layers in order for you to get to the essence. And life is like that. In general, what your eyes see is not the essence of what's going on. It takes a very special type of observation to recognize and to see through the superficial layers to get to the essence of whatever it is you're looking at. And very often we're fooled and tricked by the outer layer. And therefore we draw conclusions and make decisions in our life purely based on what the eyes see. But almost never is the essence on what the eyes see. And in our context of martial arts, the same thing applies. Very often you're going to see, I remember going into this certain karate dojo, certain martial art, and there were pictures on the wall of the sensei doing like these breaks, breaking bricks, and there's fire around the bricks, as if the fire makes it a more difficult or challenging break. It's a very flashy, it very catches the eye. But that's not where the essence is. Very often you're going to see some martial arts expert showing a technique, and he's screaming and he's making this aggressive face, or they're jumping around and putting in 3 knees, right? And looking like an animal, so to speak. As if to show that he's a dangerous man. This is a dangerous fighting system. But you have to realize that that aggression and those menacing faces are the superficial layers. And in a real situation, when there's real stress and real fear and real pain, those superficial layers of his personality will quickly melt away. And what will really decide how well he will perform is what he has deep inside. If the core personality is able to deal with the stress in a healthy effective way. So don't be fooled by flashy moves and what looks like an aggressive fighting system. It may not be a truly effective art. If you think about different areas in life, you're going to see this concept all over. You know, look at the world of fitness. People will judge by the way the body looks. If the guy has big biceps and all cut up, but is that really the healthiest body? Not necessarily. Is that really the functional body? Not necessarily. Things that look good and catch the eye are almost never the true way. You see people behaving sometimes cheerful and very jolly, but are they truly happy? That may not be the case. And in martial arts, especially if you look at it from a street fighting perspective, I believe a fighting system needs to address the fight or combat on 3 levels. And as you're going to see, most martial arts only address the superficial layer, the outermost layer, the layer that the eyes see. The outermost layer of the fight is the physical layer of the fight. The actual moves, the movements, the punches, the kicks, the blocks. Most martial arts only address that. But there's a deeper layer, something that will dictate the end of the fight to a much greater degree than the actual physical part of the fight. And that is the psychological layer of the fight. What is your state of mind? How are you affecting your opponent's state of mind? You don't realize that every move that you make, every word that you say, will have a positive or negative effect on your opponent. The way you move will either make your opponent into a better fighter, more careful, more wary of you, or less careful. Body language, the smallest details of body language will affect the state of mind of your opponent. The slightest change of your eyes will give a completely different message to your opponent and therefore will change his state of mind. There's a whole layer in the world of psychology in combat that very few fighting systems address. And then after that, there's a deeper layer, the emotional layer of the fight. Are you relaxed? Are you tense? Are you controlling your heart rate? Are you aware of your breathing? Are you aware of your surroundings? All these things depend on your emotional state. How you're dealing with fear, with anger, ego. Even fewer martial arts address this aspect of the fight. I don't want to belittle any particular martial art, but when I was a child into my teenage years, I studied a particular traditional martial art, and I was a serious student, and I trained in that martial art for between 8 and 10 years. And I could say that not once did any of my teachers in that fighting system ever talk to me about how to deal with fear, how to deal with ego, how to deal with pain, how to deal with anger. How can you claim to be a combative system when you're not addressing the most important issues? The fight is not just about how you punch and how you kick. It's more about what state you're in, what's going on inside your mind. Are you controlling your heart rate? Are you keeping internal and external awareness at the same time? There are deeper layers that people don't address. And so when I teach martial arts, I always try to address the fight on these 3 levels. If you have a fighting system that doesn't talk about fear, doesn't talk about anger, doesn't talk about how to deal with pain, that fighting system is tragically incomplete. Because you may be able to do the fanciest moves and the greatest kicks and strikes, but if you don't know how to deal with the stress of a real situation, everything you know will fall apart. And though in training you may be able to behave with aggression and act all tough, but that will melt away in a real situation. Some fighting systems teach to be aggressive in order to deal with the stress and the fear of a real situation. But that's very, very superficial. That aggression will melt away under a real situation. And you'll be left with who you really are deep inside. And if that deep part of your personality doesn't know how to deal with the stress of the situation, you lost the fight before it even began. So you have to have this inner eye that can see through what your physical eye see. And life is like that. And anything that's true is going to be counterintuitive. If you have to make a decision and you have this initial thought or perspective, be very wary of that initial understanding, because usually what you first understand is only the superficial layer. And generally what's counterintuitive, what is unexpected, what you wouldn't think initially, is the truth. Anybody who ever studied the Talmud will know that in every line of the Talmud, it's counterintuitive. And all truth is counterintuitive. All truth requires a special understanding and a wisdom to be able to see the deeper layers of what's going on. Fallacy screams and truth whispers, and you need to have that special ear, that special eye that can see and listen to the truth. It's not what you're going to see initially. And when I found the fighting system that I'm training in now, the Russian Systema, what really caught my eye was that there's very little show, very little ego. And any true master will be humble and won't look to draw your attention and attract you and impress you and make a big show of things. I remember when I met Vladimir Vasiliev in Toronto, what struck me most was how down to earth and humble he is. We were sitting there laying on the floor and talking to each other as if we're friends for years, the first time I ever met him. He didn't try to impress me to make this, to carry this air of, you know, I'm the chief instructor of Systema. Just a regular guy. And that's what I like about the fighting system. It addresses the emotional stage of the fight. It addresses psychology. And of course, it addresses the physical layer of the fight. And I think if we take this parallel between martial arts and life, it can really help us make our decisions better, look at life in a deeper way, choose the people we're going to marry based on not what the eye see, but based on the core character. Not to look for superficial similarities which will not keep the relationship together in itself. When you're getting to know somebody, try to get to know the real person. And when you're getting to know somebody, try not to put up a front. Try not to portray a certain image. Just be yourself. Be the real person who you really are. And always try to get rid of the layers of ego that we have. Thank you for watching this video. And let me know what your thoughts are. Have a good day.